God damn, dude. And now for the real news. Could Boris Johnson return as UK's Prime Minister? That's right. Many are questioning, many more are vying for the opportunity. Just like the top of the hour ad break, Boris Johnson comes and goes. But if you'd like to no longer see the top of the hour ad breaks, if you'd like an ad-free broadcasting experience, then all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, all you need to do is subscribe for the uninterrupted experience. That's right. Or you can get gifted a sub if you're lucky. But not many are. Here's the 1-minute ad break now. KCB Brian, thank you for the 5 gifted subs.
Times of London is saying that Boris Johnson is expected to stand in contest at a time when perhaps, where was he, the Caribbean? And people are wondering or trying to find this. But Guy Johnson is with us. Guy, your reaction to this headline?
Maybe he will cut his holiday short. Maybe he will return. It's interesting. So you've got a sort of 2-stage process here. And I think we need to think about those 2 stages as being distinct. So it was interesting to hear what Lizzie had to say about the possibility of one candidate ultimately being put forward. Is there the tolerance within the Conservative Party after the huge volatility we've seen over the last few days for a Boris Johnson return? Is that something, are they prepared to go back to what was a fairly chaotic effort inside 10 Downing Street from Boris Johnson and his team? Or are they looking ahead thinking what we need here is actually stability? And Boris Johnson, as John Micklethwaite was putting out a little bit earlier on, not exactly synonymous with...
I'm sorry. You will never convince me that England is a real place when you have people from there with names like Guy Johnson talking about Boris Johnson. Okay, Guy Johnson, sure. Come on, what's your real name? What's happening here? That's fake.
With that, Tom.
My amateur take, Guy, is Johnson was thrown out because of scandal, cocktails, whatever it was. I don't remember the details. I don't care.
Okay, dude. I mean, this guy, literally the Penguin, okay? What goes on Bloomberg TV? What goes on? Do you think we just like look at this and go, oh, that's a normal guy? That is a Batman villain, man. What the fuck? I've seen this guy before. It's like, it makes no sense.
Are the Brits, as Farrell would say, are they forgiving of that to say you were thrown out, you served your punishment, and would we see a different or new Prime Minister Boris Johnson October 29th?
There's been very little evidence of a new Boris Johnson, but I guess anything is possible. Boris Johnson, I suspect, is very popular within the Conservative Party grassroots, i.e. the party, but within the parliamentary party, which ultimately is going to decide...
Yeah, why? Boris Johnson is on board with the same austerity bullshit. Why is he more popular within the membership? Because Boris Johnson is a fucking racist, okay? Because he's a bumbling fool, a buffoon. Well, he's not really, but he weaponizes that buffoonery, okay? But that's it. It's because all the scandals that precede him oftentimes revolve around him flubbing, gaffing, saying some fucking hideous shit, okay? That all the dummies who have no interest in the government ever actually, defending their rights, who see austerity destroying government programs and think like maybe privatization will be better, who knows, okay? Like the railroads and parts of the NHS, that look at Boris Johnson and think, well, he's the type of guy I could have a beer with. He's the type of guy I could have a pint with. Yeah, sorry, I said beer. I meant pint. A proper pint.
Which 2 candidates go forward I don't know. And that is where the challenge for Boris Johnson is ultimately going to be here. Clearly, he would like to return.
Privatization is unpopular according to polls. They'll sell it, brother. Just wait. Listen, the rest of the world that had like some semblance of social democratic policies in their governance are following America's agenda to a T. Okay? Moneyed interests have overtaken many of these European systems. Lobbying and all that are more powerful than ever before. And on top of that, you have so much rampant corruption within the British parliamentary system. I mean, I guess it's more so corruption of that magnitude, you know, hiring people that are friends of yours or cutting deals, the government cutting deals for companies that are that directly hire your fucking family members and shit like that. Okay? And all the ultimate goal of that is privatizing and, you know, selling these social services to private corporations and destroying them. Okay? It's happening in Canada. It's happening in the UK. Ultimately, it will happen in an identical capacity where your social services look or resemble America's lack of adequate care. Yeah, the trains are already privatized and they're awful. That's precisely what happened. And it makes it harder and harder to maintain that nationalization on these incredibly valuable and incredibly important services that are important for a viable economy to prosper. Because the more they privatize it, the worse they can make it. Okay? The more they privatize it, the worse they can make it. And the worse they make it, the more they can privatize it. The more they can justify privatizing other parts of it. And the way to get there is by underfunding it and crippling it from within.
Right.
Clearly, he is interested in retaking 10 Downing Street. But nevertheless, he has got to convince the parliamentary party that is a good idea. And I think they threw him out because they were sick and tired of the turbulence. We just had even more turbulence. I'm not sure that they want any more
but Guy,
at this point.
There's also an issue here with the overhang of Brexit, because Boris Johnson oversaw the whole process. How much is Brexit still a popular decision, especially in the wake of the turmoil that we've seen over the past couple of months?
It's still a hugely divisive issue, Lisa, and as we were hearing earlier on, it is not a completed project. And therein lies the problem. Boris Johnson didn't get Brexit done. Do we want to return to the instability also that the issue of Brexit, when pursued aggressively, can generate? The Northern Ireland Protocol, we haven't talked much about that, have we? But it still lingers as an issue. It was interesting to hear what Mr. Macron over the channel had to say an hour or so ago.
Yeah.
The issue now is the parliamentary party is in job preservation mode. Is Boris Johnson, is that boosterism, is that cakeism going to be enough to get him back into prime position? I don't know.
The battle for...
I kind of want to watch parts of this Adam Curtis documentary.
Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, this is that's just not even the documentary. The Trauma Zone, Part 1, 1985 to 1989. Adam Curtis came out with a new documentary called Trauma Zone, and this is the part 2 of said documentary. Part 2 of Trauma Zone is supposed to be from 1989 to 1991, and it follows the collapse of the USSR and basically says that, or basically likens it to the current collapse of the British government. American terror, the military's problem with extremism in its ranks. We can do that as well. Here's the whole thing. Oh, you got it. I don't know if I should watch the whole thing or if we should just like jump to the end part, because I kind of want to see like the more contemporary sides. I mean, the whole thing is 3 hours long. We're not going to get through it, right? I mean, we'll start it off, but we'll look at it a little bit, and if it gets boring, which it can. The problem with Adam Curtis is that he puts a lot of TOS shit in there, so I don't know. Just FYI, this Adam Curtis isn't like his usual stuff at all. It has no modern music and no voiceover. Wait, what? There's no voiceover. There's porn in part 3 of 4. There's a dead body 5 minutes in. Wait, what the fuck? If there's no voiceover, then what? Okay, then we're not watching it. Like, that's crazy. Y'all are bugging on a cap. On a stack. He said no more voiceover. He doesn't want to be made fun of. Wait, what? Okay. Let's get back to Liz Truss and what will now happen. A new conservative leader who will be the next prime minister will be in place by Friday, 28th October, the chairman of the influential 1922 committee of the backbench Tory MPs has said. Sir Graham Brady said they will be in the top job before the fiscal statement on October 31st. Prime Minister Liz Truss announced their resignation after she met Sir Graham and agreed for a leadership election to be completed within the next week. This is what Sky News understands about how the process will unfold. In the last leadership election, a Tory MP needed to be nominated by 8 colleagues to take part in the race. If more than 2 MPs put themselves forward and secured enough nominations to run for leader, a series of ballots was held to whittle them down. The individual who received the... Dude, why is there so many people who want me to watch the bald in Afghanistan video? What is going on in this community? Like, I have avoided it. I don't really care for it. I don't really want to watch it. I have never had so many people for so long, for weeks and weeks and weeks, like, since it came out. Every single day, you guys fucking spam it. I don't understand why you guys did it. Why you guys want me to watch it. Sure, we'll take a look at it, okay? It's literally a fucking hour long. All right, let's continue. The individual who received the fewest votes each round was eliminated until 2 candidates remained. Last time this was Ms. Truss and Rishi Sunak. When just 2 MPs were left, party members got to make their final choice of who will become Conservative Party leader and therefore Prime Minister. However, the process typically takes several weeks, and it remains unclear how the 1922 committee will truncate it to meet the Friday deadline. Sir Graham said there was an exception. Tory members would be involved in the process. There's an expectation, but said, I think we're deeply conscious of the imperative in the national interest of resolving this clearly and quickly. Sir Graham was vague about how many candidates there would likely be that are in the running. The party rule says there will be 2 candidates being put to Tory membership unless there's only 1 candidate, he said. That candidate, Boris Johnson.
Westminster.
Let's take a look at what Mick Lynch has to say about the collapse of the government.
What we're doing here is we're at the TUC. This morning Keir Starmer's going to speak. We've had Anne-Marie Trevelyan's latest message that she's going to oppress railway workers and conscript us into helping the employer break her own strike. And we've got chaos at Westminster, so who knows what's going to happen next.
What does the chaos at Westminster feel like to your members?
Well, it feels like we've got a government that is completely out of control, that has lost the plot. We're waiting for a settlement to get serious negotiations on. The employers have told me on Friday they cannot make an offer because they've not met this Secretary of State and therefore they cannot change their position. She gives them the mandate for what they can say and do at the negotiating table. She hasn't met with them. She's met with me, but not with the employers. And they have told me directly they've got no mandate to settle the dispute. And while that's going on, they're being paid £30 million a day every time we go on strike. So they've got no motivation and no means to settle the dispute.
You were quite hopeful when Anne-Marie first got in. What do you make of her now?
I'm always hopeful, but she's good cop, bad cop, but on two different sides of the one face. So she told us that we're a family, that we are all going to have a settlement, we've got to work together at the table, which is fine. And in the next week, she's going to conscript workers into going to work during lawful disputes, which is
So shocking. Whenever you hear at your workplace, whenever you hear the fucking family narrative come out, ladies and gentlemen, understand that that person is lying to you, okay? Unless you're talking about like an abusive family.
complete suppression of human rights and the right to strike. I'm sure it's illegal. I think it's against the International Labour Convention. It's probably against the Human Rights Act. And we'll take them to court along with the TUC and all the other
Mick Lynch blamed Ukraine for provoking Russia to invade. Oh, man, dude. You know what? We should actually make sure that the railway workers have to work for free at gunpoint. Thank you. That's crazy. No, wow. So maddening. It's men. Ooh.
unions. And we want support of the British people. They cannot have their
in the UK, it'd be knife point. True.
freedoms and
Knife point.
privileges as free people suppressed in this way.
Would you say that they were trivialising strike action?
Well, they seem to be making it more serious. These events could have been resolved within a matter of weeks when we started, but they seem to be escalating these disputes all of the time through the hype we've had off Grant Shapps, who suddenly reappeared, having been sacked 6 weeks ago. He seemed to hype them up at every opportunity, castigating me and other trade union leaders, castigating our members. All we want is a square deal, and we know that the employers could give us a deal if they were allowed to negotiate it.
Just looking at all of the chaos that ensued last night, what does that mean, Westminster chaos, to your members, people right now who are struggling with their salaries? What does it mean to them?
Well, I think the country has the right to expect serious politicians. Even if you don't agree with everything that a particular government's doing, they've got to conduct themselves with a bit of professionalism and dignity. And what we're seeing is people scrabbling around, worrying about who's going to get a P45, worrying about who's going to get a red box next. And frankly, it could be all of them. They could all have a turn at being a minister the way it's going. But it's just a ridiculous situation. There is a clear difference now between the opposition and the government. We need a general election. They need to sort out who their leader is, the Conservatives. They need to put that leader in front of the public in an election, and they need to let us make the choice as the voting people of Britain about who we want to govern us.
Do you think that this government takes pensioners more seriously than workers?
Well, they have got this cliche that pensioners need to be looked after in a way that workers don't, but pensioners are workers as well. They're just living on their deferred wages. A lot of pensioners are angry about the way this country is governed. We want the triple lock to be enforced, but we want workers who are creating the wealth that pays those pensions to be treated properly as well. The problem in this country is that wealth is not distributed properly. There are too many rich people who've got too much of the wealth, and there are too many poor people who haven't got enough. That's a fairly simple equation to work out. The poor need to get wealthier, and the wealthy need to get a bit poorer, and then we'll have a more balanced society.
They've announced that they're ending the cap in April on energy bills. Have your members spoken to you about that at all?
Well, we haven't had a chance.
For people who say Mick Lynch, oh, that's a sock dem response for the fucking one guy in the chat who's a radical, vanguardist, Maoist, third worldist, okay? Suck me, all right? You have to remember that he is a political figure, okay? He is a political figure. He has a job. His job is to represent his union. His job is to represent the rank and fucking file. Okay? And he's doing an incredible job at communicating the frustration of his rank and file. He doesn't have to fucking constantly talk about Marxist theory. Okay? Just like I don't have to constantly talk about Marxist theory, and but also because I'm a fake socialist. Let's be real. I'm a capitalist. I love capitalism. Num, 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 num. It's my favorite. Okay? He's great. He's fucking awesome. He's one of the best. Look, when you're right, you're right. It's true. It's fucking true. Bring back Boris. That's what Ukraine said. Ukraine said, better call Boris. And they're right. Suck me, Westerner. I know third world Maoist, and they never talk about Marxism.
Members will be as worried as anyone else at how they pay their bills. Most of our people have not had a pay rise for 3 years. That's part of what this dispute is about. But you've got to have a job to get a pay rise. So we want to secure their jobs with decent conditions and a decent pay deal. They could sort out the cap on energy bills by capping the profits through tax of the energy companies. If they were threatened with a massive tax, they could lower their prices and not depend on the market rate. We don't have to have a market rate for energy. We could have a controlled rate, and of course a publicly owned energy company would solve that, or a government that was willing to direct the energy companies about what they can charge, as we have done in previous times.
The Chancellor said he would look into windfall taxes if they were legitimately windfall, in his opinion. Do you think that rail profits are legitimately windfall?
Well, rail profits are. The rail companies are making £500 million last year. They were carrying no passengers and they took the subsidy off the state. They claim £16 billion was given to rail workers, which makes us chuckle. We did our work and the rail companies ran some trains, and for that the subsidy that they were given was handed back to the shareholders, 500 million quid. Now, it could be a windfall tax, or we could just get rid of the privateers. We could have a publicly run railway that's in the interest of the people, in the interest of the passengers, the interest of the workers, and the economy and the climate. And we could have a really good integrated transport policy. But at the moment, we've got no transport policy because they've dropped the transport bill. So we've got a Secretary of State who's actually dropped the main bill, which is the bread and butter of her work, and we'll have nothing to do now for the rest of her term in office.
And you're going on strike again?
We're going on strike again at the beginning of November. That's regrettable. We don't want to do that. But we have to pursue the dispute. We have to keep the dispute alive. Network Rail are threatening imposition, threatening our members with redundancy, and saying that all their working conditions are going to be chopped up. And on the train operating companies, we've got no offer at all.
Just finally, could you describe this government in one word?
Chaos.
That's Mick Lynch, the legend, head of the Railroad Union, a god, a king in his own right. Big fan of him. And that's it. That's enough UK news for the day. That's right. Let's move on now to news in PewDiePie and Ukraine.